state now.
The Radio Whammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Russell Norman.
Catching up with Russell Norman this morning on the road, or on the river, as it were, with the river rafting tour, the Dirty River Rafting Tour. G'day there, Russell.
G'day, Whammo. How's it going?
Good. A bit of wild weather, I suppose, over the past week. Has that disrupted the tour somewhat?
Well, we did have pretty driving rain on the Wairoa up near Cleveland, near Auckland. And the river was really flooded. But, yeah, we still went on. There's still about a dozen hardy souls that went down the river. And
what did you find? What did you discover?
Well, the Wairoa, the thing about it is it's about 75% of the testing that's done, there's so much fecal material in the water that it's not safe to swim in. And that's a combination of intensive agriculture upstream, and also they've got some problems with septic tanks in Cleveland. So yeah, it's a fantastic river, but it's very heavily polluted.
Okay. So you weren't tempted to put on the swimming trunks and jump in there at all?
No, though you do tend to get inevitably pretty wet during these things. So no doubt we all got a bit of it. I mean, the regional council rates it as fair up there. Which is, I think, quite interesting when you think that they rate as fair a river which 75% of tests show has so much faeces in it that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a sense of the scale of the problem.
Is it easy to solve, though?
Well, with the Wairoa, it's a matter of getting on top of the septic tanks with either some close monitoring of them or reticulation. That's the argument they're having at the moment. And then with the agriculture, it's a matter of fencing off, riparian planting, and then having a look at the stocking intensities. So it's all doable. It's just a matter of having the political will to do it.
So is anything underway? Is anyone doing anything about it?
There's a local land care group which is making a little bit of progress. The problem that land care groups have is that they're voluntary, so you have the good farmers join them and they all start fencing and planting and stuff. But then you have the bad farmers who don't, and there's nothing to make them do it. So you also need some rules, and so there's a national policy statement, a draft one, on freshwater management sitting on the Minister for the Environment's desk. So these are rules to clean up waterways. The Minister can just sign them off, but he's under enormous pressure from industry not to. So we need the rules so that the bad farmers are made to clean up their act as well, because the good farmers don't have anything to fear from the rules.
And so what river are you off to next?
We're actually going to go next week to the Tarawera, which is kind of on the east coast way of the North Island, and that's a river which has quite a bit of pollution coming from the Kawerau plant, the mill there. So it's a fantastic river, actually.
What kind of mill is that? What are they milling?
Paper, right. Pulp and paper. I mean, it starts off crystal clear, and then as it passes the mill, it gets a lot of pollution added to it and changes colour quite dramatically. It used to be known as a black drain. It's a bit better than it used to be, but it's still got serious pollution problems.
Well, before you go, we should touch on Phil Goff's speech yesterday, where he announced Labour's tax policy. No tax for the first $5,000 earned, which would give all New Zealanders, no matter what you're earning, as long as you're earning above $5,000, I suppose, $10 a week. He says it's a redistribution of wealth, taxing more at the upper end, less on the lower end. Is it a good move? Do you think if Labour were to get in government, it's a step in the right direction?
Yeah, so we've entered the opening speeches of the year. So we had Phil Goff yesterday, we got John Key today, and I'm doing ours on Sunday at our campaign conference. And so Phil Goff's speech was, he adopted some of the Green Party policy. So our policy is $10,000 is the tax-free threshold, which is very similar to overseas, such as in Australia. And the reason for having a tax-free threshold at the bottom is that it's the fairest way to give a tax cut, because it means that everyone gets the same quantum, the same amount of money. Otherwise, if you cut the tax rates like National did, it means the more you earn, the bigger your tax cut, which obviously isn't fair. So, we're pleased that Labor's adopted part of our policy, and we think that it will make the tax system more progressive. I mean, the problem for Labor is funding it, and because they won't, or so far haven't, accepted the need for a capital gains tax, excluding the family home, then they're going to have the struggle of paying for it. So the Greens have a policy of a capital gains tax excluding the family home, which would raise somewhere in the order of $4+ billion a year. So that's...
Was it $4 billion?
Yeah, it's very effective, because so much of tax avoidance happens in New Zealand, where people try to turn their income tax into capital gains to avoid paying tax on it.
Yeah.
When they introduced it in Australia, they got much more money than they expected. It's been very, very effective over there at raising money.
I'm a bit scanned on the detail, but didn't Phil Goff announce something like that yesterday?
No, he's talking about trying to crack down on some of the tax avoidance around property. So there's a lot of tax avoidance goes on around property and other things. Obviously, the banks illegally avoided nearly $2 billion worth of tax and were caught. But there's a lot of tax avoidance around property, and so he's talking about cracking down on that. You can get very high returns by investing in increased tax, basically enforcing the rules around that. So that's one part of it, is ring-fencing some of the losses on investment properties. But the bigger picture is the capital gains tax. Because, when you think about it, if you earn money from wages, then you pay tax on it. But if you earn money from capital gains because your shares have doubled in value and you sell them or whatever, it's still income.
Yeah.
You still get it in your pocket, but it's tax-free.
Yeah.
So we just think, just about every other country in the world, including the United States, has capital gains tax in Australia, because they go, well, it's income, you should pay tax on it. So it's fair.
Now,
the other thing about it is the richer you are, the more capital gains you get, so it's a very progressive tax.
Now, as you say, you're still yet to do your speech, and the National Party, John Key, doing his speech today, but already I can see on the news coming through last night with John Key's reaction to Phil Goff that there is a PR divide happening here where Labor's heading down the tax break, the extra tax off there, and also, of course, redistribution of wealth, where John Key's saying, much like Labor did, I suppose, before the 2008 election, saying, well, how are you going to do that? You're going to have to borrow overseas. And I can see National heading down the whole, we're going to start getting New Zealanders to save kind of thing, which are two very sort of almost quite different messages. And it's going to be interesting to see which one the public responds to.
I mean, it's all PR. National tax cuts, of course, cost $15 billion by 2015. So that's an extra $15 billion were in hock because they gave money, the overwhelming majority of which goes to the rich, because they gave away money in tax cuts. And you could also, if you look at their motorway spending, $10 billion on motorways that don't have an economic case for them. So National have added $25 billion on national debt by 2015. The idea that National are fiscally responsible, I think, is a joke.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll listen to your speech with interest this weekend and talk to you about it next week.
All right, cheers, mate.
Thanks, Russell. Russell Norman, the co-leader of the Greens. Got a track now from Fredericks Brown.
New on